Welcome to Redesigning Life, another episode. This one's going to be good and juicy because today I have Jill Brown with us. Jill is a former NASA research scientist who's turned into evolutionary astrologer. She founded 8 Stars Astrology. Jill, I am so excited to get started because I know you pulled my chart. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited. Thank you for having me, Sabrina.
Oh my gosh. So, first of all, I want to know about astrology and how I think some people look at astrology and they think it's just woo woo,
Mhm.
psychic stuff. But I mean, you are, it's to me, I'm so impressed with your background. I mean, like you were a scientist and like if you believe in astrology and it guiding our lives, it's real. So how is astrology really science?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I hear that often from folks. And they'll say stuff like, "Well, I don't believe in astrology or astrology's vanity, etc." And what I think is interesting about that is to me astrology is essentially a cosmic forecast, the same way we have meteorology that predicts it has forecasting models, we can help predict the weather, we can tell you where we think a storm's coming in, right? Different fronts moving around. That's what astrology is. It is the science of cosmic activities and cosmic transits, and with those transits and activities are correlated events, correlated energies, correlated interplays of energy. And so I always think it's funny because I'm like, well, you don't have to believe in meteorology as a science, but it's happening whether you believe it or not. So you may as well
Right.
kind of learn about it and check the weather forecast. It's the same with astrology. And
How does that work? How does it work?
how does it work? So it's interesting because it's actually based on astronomy, right? We all know that the planets rotate, the planets orbit, the planets have all these different interactions. And astrology is just centuries of studying those same astronomy movements and then observing energetic patterns and, um, uh, y- you know, qualities and traits and characteristics that correspond with those planets, those movements, and the astronomy, aspects of it. So it is scientific. In fact, I think we discredit our ancestors as being very stupid, for lack of a better word. Like we look back and we're like, oh, ha, ha, they were using astrology. Like what a bunch of idiots. We have science now. But it was a form of science and remains a form of science. It's observable, it's repeatable, it has patterns, right? And those are all the things that we look for in science. It's just that we also have now the natural sciences and we have the advancement of technology that can tell us more about solar systems and galaxies far, far away that our predecessors didn't have because of certain aspects of the technological advancements. But it is a scientific process. It is repeatable, it is observable, it is, all the things that we would think of as being scientific, right? And then you put on that a lens of interplay, a lens of personal experience, a lens of freedom and free choice and free will. So I don't think astrology is predetermination necessarily, but it is repeatable patterns that we can use to help improve our life and showcase a mission and help us get unstuck when we feel stuck. It's there to help us and to guide us. And then it's our choice how we want to interact with that, both in our own natal chart and in just the broader transit of what's going on in the world.
But how does it affect our lives? No one's been able to explain to me how it affect. Like I was born in Miami at this time on this date. How do the stars affect my life just because I was born on that date in that time in that place?
Yeah, and I would say it's not necessarily that they cast a model and a lens through which you can look at your life and your experience, right? And the idea, at least in evolutionary astrology, is that we were consciousness before we came into this like physical world, and we made a choice about when we were going to enter, and that choice is marked by our natal chart. And it is trying to tell us, okay, it's almost to me like a reminder, like, okay, Sabrina, you chose to come in on the 27th of December, and the reason you chose that, if you choose to look up your natal chart later, is because you have a very specific mission and a very specific set of opportunities to guide your life and your karma essentially in this lifetime. You can choose to do those things or not, but they're usually a way to help us reconcile or make different choices from past life experiences, because it's all about growing. It's about learning. It's about choosing
To be in
opportunities.
human school. So this goes even further and deeper than us just being born in these human, on earth. And like you're saying, this goes past to like your consciousness choosing to be here. And then because of that, with the planets comes because of that time that you chose is what your destiny could be,
Could be.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I think it's your highest opportunity or your highest calling if you choose to embrace that. And often it's because we had a experience in another lifetime that left a mark for better or worse, and we're here to kind of have a new set of opportunities, right?
Right. Okay. So let's say like, yeah, in my past life something happened and I was like, "Hey, I wanna go back there again because I wanna learn how to do that differently," or whatever the case is. Astrology allows you to get a glimpse into that.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So, what does that even mean? The natal chart, the Chiron, like what? I don't even know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess to just baseline everybody's understanding, there are different forms of astrology. There's a lot of different, there's Vedic astrology, there's evolutionary astrology, there's different systems, there's whole house systems, and it can get infinitely complex, right? It's a complex landscape. They are all just different lenses of studying the stars, right? And trying to put together a chart and a mission. So the reason I was specifically drawn to evolutionary astrology is I happened to get my chart read right at a time when I had my oldest daughter, my first child, and I was feeling really actually quite stuck sort of professionally, but I also, like, had this daughter that I loved, and I was feeling this very, like, push-pull between, like, I have this career and this mission that I feel really strong about, but I also have this baby, and I kind of feel stuck, and I'm not sure what to do, and I'm married to somebody who had a career in the Navy, so that was very telling us where we had to be, which was impacting my career, and it's like, "I have a master's degree, I don't really wanna go live in this place that you were assigned to live. I'd like to keep my job at NASA." Um, and so, uh, there was a lot of stuckness and frustration, even though there was a lot of good happening too. And so just I thought, I'm gonna get my chart read. I've always wanted to do that. And the woman I went to was an evolutionary astrologer. I didn't know that. I just picked an astrologer, right? And she was great and highly recommended. And this woman sat across from me and told me things about my childhood and my life and places of stuckness, knowing nothing but my name and my date of birth and my time of birth. And I just thought, what is going on here? How can this person know so much about me? And at the time, all I knew about astrology was I'm a Taurus. And I'd always kind of felt not that much of a Taurus too. Like Taurus is always like, they love plants and they keep plants alive and they love food. And I'm like, well, I do love food, but I can't keep a plant alive. And a
Yeah.
lot of it was like sort of not that accurate. It's like, well, sort of, you kind of do the like, sort of.
You're like, "Yeah, I like a tree."
Yeah, well, and it was like they're bad at change and they're very stubborn. I probably am a little stubborn, but, I really loved travel and international travel and, like, all these cultures, and change was a huge part of my life, and I really embraced change, so I was like, "That's really weird." Well, it turns out I'm a Sagittarius rising, and Sagittarius is really all about travel and other cultures and embracing education and all these things, and, um, I felt like I felt like for the first time in my life, I had a lot of grace for who I was. Like, it gave me permission to be like, these things aren't just random. It's kind of this karmic imprint you were born with,
Right, right.
and you have a mission, and being a mother is, a big part of that, but so is career, and it just was very affirming about a lot of things that were ahead. I also had, a lot of childhood trauma that I was just starting to process and go to therapy for, and that was in my chart that she told me about, and I'm like, "No one knows this but my therapist and one of my siblings, like, how does this woman
Wow.
know this?" Yeah. Very, very personal stuff, and at the same time, my toddler, who was not quite 2 yet, one night I was putting her to bed and reading a story or something, and she said, Can I sing to you tonight?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And so she started singing me this song about it's night and it's dark and we're traveling the forest and we see the stars and we know where we are and we know where we're going. And at first, you're just a mom and you're tired, so I was like, "Uh-huh, that's cute," and then all of a sudden something kinda just said, like, "Listen." And I really listened, and she was singing almost like a gospel hymnal or something about it was so soulful, and it was not a children's song, and when she stopped, I said, where did you hear that?" And she said, "Oh, from my other mother." And I said, "Your other mother?" And I was, like, very conscious not to make it weird, but I was like, "Oh, your other mother?" And she said, "Yeah, I had a mother before you, but we used to travel at night and follow the stars, and we were crossing a river, and she drowned." And I'm like, that is really oddly specific for a 20-month-old or whatever, like a toddler to tell me all about this other mother she had who drowned." And I said, "Oh gosh, okay." And she said, "Yeah, and then and then something happened to me and I woke up and now you're my mother." And I'm like, "Okay." "Oh, okay." And I think if I hadn't at the same time overlapped that experience with getting my chart read and learning about, like, past life karma, that was something so foreign and bizarre to me, both from a religious upbringing that I had and a scientific research sort of mindset that I had. It really was like this Pandora's box that opened for me that I think there's a lot more going on here than I really gave credit for.
Yeah.
And there is this overlap of, yes, we have intelligence and scientific study and methodology and research, but there's also just something that is still unknown by like fact or, provable, but that's felt. And how does a toddler know about another mother and this song? And then sometimes she would see her other mother and she would sort of run off and then come back and say, "Oh, my other mother wanted to see my Easter dress." Or, "Oh, my other mother wanted to tell me something." And I think in the past, like in my childhood, we would have been like, "Oh, that's cute, imaginary friend." But it was
Yeah.
so
Yes. Yes.
specific. And I think I was just in this place of being vulnerable to being like cracked open to maybe believing that. And that became the path for me that really opened up evolutionary astrology
Okay,
because
yeah, I
we
was gonna
look.
ask you, like, how do you go from being a research
Yeah,
scientist at NASA to like, that's a huge from what I would think from the
it is.
outside, it's a jump.
It is a jump. Yeah, and it was a spectrum, right? So I didn't just like the next day do it. What I actually did was I kept harassing my poor astrologer for like more and more readings until finally she was like, "Maybe you should go to school and study this because you have a capacity and you're clearly very interested." So then it just started. I wanted to be a better parent to my kids. And kind of to overcome some of the childhood trauma I had, I thought, gosh, if I could understand my kids' chart a little better, maybe I could be the kind of parent that could adapt more to, um, the guardrails and the light and the help that they need. So then I got into it really to kinda help be a better parent to my children, and then it started then your sister's interested and your friend's interested, and then it just sort of went on from there to where I was like, "Okay, no, I'm gonna get
This is a
certified in this,"
career.
and yeah.
Going back to your daughter, seeing her other mother, that was in how did you ever find out, like, what was she seeing, or how was she experiencing that?
No, she will. I think it's more, clairaudient. She, like, hears it, or she will dream about it. But I don't know that she ever actually saw it, and it's hard because she was so young, and I was
Yeah.
trying to be open to it without you can feel that moment with anybody where you're probed a little too much, and then they sort of go, I'm not "Oh, wait, I'm saying something that's weird, and I don't wanna talk about it anymore." So I was really cognizant to not push too hard, but it's more like she hears and then has dreams. Yeah, it's super fascinating. Not one of my gifts, but
Yes, and so does she still have those like, does she still feel that now or, like
not as much, which I kinda hate. She's 8
yeah.
now. Yeah, it really started to curtail around the age of 5 or 6. Every once in a while, she'll say something, but it's a lot less. But she would do things like the morning my grandfather passed away. She saw my grandfather in the house with my dog who had recently passed, and she was like, "Oh, Bunka's here with Betty, my dog," and I was like, "Oh, okay," and then my mom called, maybe an hour later and was like, "Your grandfather passed away this morning." So it's like
I
stuff
just got
like
full
that.
body chills.
Yeah. Yeah, so she has some kind of capacity that I feel like, I think she and I have reincarnated together a lot, and she's like a teacher for me even though she's my child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I have so many questions.
Yeah, I know, that's the whole thing. Well, so what's fascinating is there's a series on Netflix that I think it's the University of Virginia Medical department. So again, this really fascinating place of science overlapping with spirituality has done a bunch of research on children that have past life memories, and they've gone and been able to prove the people that they say they were existed.
Wow, 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 wow,
Which is like,
wow.
it's fascinating stuff. Yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole you can go to. So that made me feel better too, because I was like, oh no, this is like a provable science that people are actually studying with PhDs, where children have, a lot of times it's children who have like night trauma or nightmares that they can't explain, like crashing in one of them was a child that had crashed into the ocean in a plane. And he was able to say enough to researchers that they figured out and recovered a World War II airplane that had gone down in the Pacific Theater, and it was tied to the last person that flew it was this pilot that this kid said that he was. I mean, it's just it'll blow your mind. So it just like kept adding to this idea that yes, we live in a tangible world and we have deadlines, and that is part of the importance of this life, but there's also other stuff that's like very cool.
I so I mean, this is gonna be the first Redesigning Life podcast that is 7 hours long. No, I'm
Right,
just kidding.
right, right. I know it becomes a series, right? It's like
I
there's like
know.
20 more episodes, but yes.
Okay, so selfishly, and
Mhm.
listeners, just bear with me. I would love to hear what you saw in my chart.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting. So when we look at your chart, we know you're a Capricorn sun. Some people have, it's interesting, like some people will have, I'm a Virgo, but they actually have a ton of Scorpio. And I'll say the reason you get your chart read by an astrologer is they can sort of intuitively look at the really strong energies. It's not always your sun sign. I suspect that's a reason a lot of people don't believe in astrology, is because their chart is actually much more heavily dominated in a different sign that isn't just the obvious, I was born May 9th, so I'm a Taurus.
But then
I
how do you know that? How do you know that?
you can pull your chart. Anyone can actually pull their chart, but you just need to know your exact time of birth, your place of birth, and your date of birth.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, I know my sun is Capricorn, my moon is Pisces, I think, right? And my
Uh,
rising is Aquarius?
your rising is Aquarius. In evolutionary astrology, your moon is actually Leo. You have
Oh,
a Leo
okay.
moon. Yep. And I think that's the difference too, is a lot of the apps will use whole house astrology, which I love apps, but if you use evolutionary astrology, it uses what's called the Placidus system, and it's a more precise measurement of where your planets fall. So sometimes it'll sound a little different,
Okay.
right? So yeah. And then you have a stellium, obviously.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Okay. You have a stellium.
What is
Um,
that?
so a stellium is when three or more planets are really tightly coupled together, usually within about 10 degrees of each other. So you have a stellium in Capricorn, which tells me you're like the ultimate Capricorn, because you get all the Capricorn superpowers, which is, hard worker, diligent. Like if we're going to call someone in to get the job done, it's going to be a Capricorn. By the way, my oldest that has her other mother and stuff, she's a Capricorn. She's my ultimate Capricorn. I love her. I love Capricorn energy.
Me too.
Um,
Not just because it's me.
yeah, no, it's such a good, like, Capricorn is just, they're the people that get stuff done,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just that very much like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. So you've got all that like Capricorn superpowers. Um, but when we look at your south, the other thing, just not to squirrel, but your chart, when you look at the wheel of your chart, if you cut it in half, so you have an upper half and a lower half, your chart is predominantly, almost entirely upper half, which when I look at that before I even knew you, if I was doing a reading for you, I would say this is somebody who has a more um, public calling, a leadership calling. The upper half is very visible of our chart. So if you have a lot of upper half stuff, it's here for visibility. It's here for leadership. It's here to lead and build communities. It's a lot more that upper, more visible, more public realm. When I see people with tons and tons of lower hemisphere, it tends to be, okay, this is a lifetime dedicated to healing self, healing family, healing those more like inner things that we deal with, more than a very like public or visible life, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. So you're um so interesting with you, when I look at there's a point on your chart and it's called the South Node. And That's as much as you need to know. You don't need to know any more else. But if you looked at your own birth chart, or if someone was interested and pulled their own birth chart, your south node is the point that in evolutionary astrology we say tells you about a past life signature. And there's some more, technical mumbo jumbo that will go into the analysis. But immediately when I see your south node, it is this idea that your south node is in Aries in the first house, and it's conjunct Saturn. And when I Aries, warrior, leadership, like action oriented, fierce determination, right? All that kind of stuff is Aries. Then it's in the first house, which Aries rules. And the first house is again leadership, um, like dedication, patriotism. That's all like very first house stuff. And then yours is sitting conjunct Saturn, which is discipline, loyalty, and all this. So immediately when I see your south node, I would say this is a lifetime where you probably literally or metaphorically like died with your boots on. It's that kind of energy. It is, there's a lot more synopsis here, but it is somebody who was in a position of leadership, somebody who had to make really difficult decisions with really limited information that impacted large groups of people. And those positions, we look up to our leaders, right? Tell us what to do. Where do we go? What should we do? They're here to save us. That is a tremendous amount of responsibility and duty and sacrifice to put on a person. And so with that South Node signature, when I look at you, I would see somebody who was fiercely loyal to whatever this cause was that you were battling for. And that could be a political cause. It could be a literal like battlefield cause. It could be any of those things. But at least one of these lives of yours was one where you're a very courageous, loyal person in leadership that had to lead people having incomplete information, maybe not even perfect information, and were responsible for a lot of people's livelihood, outcome, maybe even lives, right? Um, and so I see then this very like leadership can be lonely, right? We look at our leaders and we think like, oh, they have it so great and they're in this position of authority. Leadership is also very lonely. And it's hard when you're leading a group of people to make what you think is the next best decision, but you don't know for sure. And there's anyone who's owned a business and had employees, right? Like I worry about my employees, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you've had those times where it's like, we got to make payroll this week or whatever, right? Or your kids, you have to be a leader to your kids or your community that you're building. But there's a tremendous amount of sacrifice that goes into leadership. And so your past life is this really, really prominent. Some people's south nodes are harder to put together. Yours is like intensely, obviously pointing at somebody who either like died for a cause or took things all the way to the end for a cause that they believed in, but was responsible for large groups of people and really big decision making, and felt very strongly about the purpose and the responsibility of that.
Yeah.
So then I see when you're born, right? You're born with all these Capricorn superpowers because you've been a leader, you've had to make tough decisions, you care a lot about fairness and justice and the right choice and the right outcome. Um, there's also these really Virgo qualities there that are really wanting to be of service. My guess is your whole life has been a lot about wanting to be helpful, having a desire to serve, having a desire to be in service to a community. Like there's a lot of your North Node is in Libra in the seventh, which just means your guiding light in this lifetime is to almost like servant leadership, to really create and craft communities that are about caring and about fairness and about beauty. And that is all kind of those superpowers that are in there. But it's just sometimes too almost like a compulsion probably in your lifetime to lead and to grow and to start things. That's such an Aries kind of, Capricorn quality. So that is what we see predominantly in, at least in your nodal signature, is a person who was a very courageous, strong leader that likely when you exited that life, exited, literally with your boots on, doing the work and making things happen.
Wow. Yeah, I feel that.
Which then again, then we tend to be born in and like what feels comfortable to us. Leadership, a compulsion to serve.
But do
Uh,
we just bring our past lives into our current lives to to keep it going, like, to keep that
no, no,
you
not
know
necessarily. It's what feels comfortable because it's what's known,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh,
And
like
I
anything
think,
else?
yep. But I think the thing that we're seeing here, which is interesting, is you have your north, so your south node, that's Aries in the first, sitting directly opposite that is your north node, which is kind of your like calling for this life, and it's in Libra in the seventh. And what's that saying is, yes, you have these innate leadership skills. Yes, you have this desire to serve, but it's a reminder too that in that lifetime, we all serve somebody, right? You were still probably taking orders from somebody or serving some cause or party or whatever. And so it's saying use those skills, but craft your own community. Have the autonomy to build and be in control of the message, the cause that's worth devoting your life to. Um, because when I see Aries in the first two, I almost see almost like, if you're a soldier, you follow orders. No matter how high up you go, you're sort of always answering to
To
orders.
somebody, yeah.
Right. And this North Node is saying, yeah, Sabrina, you have this skill set, which is amazing, but you get to choose the cause. You get to build the community. You get to create and set the pace and the culture there. You don't have to just inherit and fight for that cause, right? And so seventh house is also and Libra are both about interpersonal relationships. There's a lot of beauty, style, calmness. Like whenever I see seventh house or Libra or Virgo, I say these are people that need beauty. Some people don't need beauty. You've been in their homes. That's not to be rude or dismissive, but some people just don't care. Like my husband, I love him. I
You
went to
ain't
his
gotta tell
house.
me twice. That's all
Yeah,
I've
I'm like
the last
lazy
20 years.
boy, oversized recliner for real. We're doing that. No, we're not. We're gonna get rid of that. I love you. Um, and he was fine
You're
with it. He was
speaking my
very happy.
language. You are speaking my language.
And I'm like, oh no, that's not gonna work for me. I cannot function and thrive in a community or in a space, a physical space that is not also beautiful.
Same,
I need the fresh flowers. I need the
same.
fresh plants. I want my crystals. I need it to be beautiful. Yeah, I saw yours. Yeah, I need it to. It has to because that's how I feel my best. That's how I can create. That's how I can even when I worked at NASA and was a research scientist, it needed to be beautiful. I can't create from a void.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
that's
how
kind
did
of
you make I'm curious, how would you make NASA beautiful? Like, how did you do that personally in
just
your
my little space.
Yeah.
Yeah. I brought in my plants, like, nobody had living stuff. I'm like, "I need my plants," and I had a few crystals that were more like, my ammonite, sort of like my fossilized ones that sort of weren't so obvious. I didn't have my big rose quartz tower or my amethyst,
But
but, like, it's
did
sort of
the other scientists look at your crystals and think that Jill's the cuckoo one?
No, I think I was already such an outcast being, probably 20 years younger than everyone else and the only girl. Like, I
Yeah.
worked in I worked in the airplane hangar. My office was attached to the airplane hangar, so there was 3 women in the entire building. So I was already not like, and by the way, they were lovely. I never felt outcast, but it was always like I was already so different. I think people actually almost appreciated it
Yeah.
because it was a bunch of men that are respectfully
Definitely,
probably on
I
the
mean, yeah.
spectrum and just like, oh, like they were just kinda happy there was a girl in there. So
How do you Okay, so let's go to crystals, and then I wanna get back to my reading, but I want
yeah.
there's so much, I think, to unpack. The crystals, how do you use them how do they connect to astrology?
I started my foray into crystals because they were beautiful, and I
Just
love
because they're
pretty
pretty,
things.
yeah.
100%. And I'm such a green girl, that part is Taurus, so it was like I was so attracted to green. I'm like, "Ooh, malachite and like all this moss agate." And then when I started to learn about their properties, I have found those to be very helpful, actually really helpful with my kids too. There's been multiple times when my husband has deployed and my kids, will start to have nightmares, and so I did a lot of research on crystals because the energy is soothing with the right ones to put together, and I'd make these little packs of tumbled crystals, and I'd put them under my daughter's pillows, and then if they had a bad dream, it was like, "Hold on to your crystals, and you can talk to them, and they'll take that energy away, and you can sleep," and it actually cured my kids' nightmares when my husband would deploy.
How does that work, though? Tell me how it works scientifically.
Gosh, with crystals, I don't even know. I mean, to me, what it is everything has a frequency, right? We
Yep.
know that from physics.
Yes.
And so different crystals, I believe, are created at different frequencies, and those frequencies can assist us. Anyone who's had a sound bath or worked with solfeggio frequencies or tincture bells for energy clearing, sound is a frequency that can permeate. And so crystals have frequencies that I believe can also permeate and help based on the qualities and also based on where we are in our life, right?
Yeah. Okay, wait,
So
so hold on because I love the science background, so I'm gonna, like, soak it up.
yeah,
So, obviously, I love crystals, I think they're
yeah,
absolutely beautiful, but, like, yes, I believe everything has a frequency, it's not that I believe, it's just science, but so
yeah,
does this pen. So
100%
but is it this frequency is lower in the
denser.
okay, right,
Denser. Yep.
and so
And
these
also, I
crystals
think because the earth creates crystals, mankind creates pencils, right? This is manufactured in a lab at a dense low frequency, whereas our crystals are created in the earth through the natural processes of, like, billions of years of the earth's magic.
Yeah.
I need to go back to school to get a geology degree, that would be my
Please
next step.
do because I need you to have you back
I know.
because I
I
do, I'm like,
know.
okay, I wonder like, look, I have them all over the house
Yeah.
because I think they're beautiful, but then I'm like, I really would love to understand the dumbed down version of, like, why am I attracted to them? Because, oh, tumble rock, whatever that you get or like a river rock, that has a frequency to it, but why what's the difference?
Yeah. No, you're right, you're right. I mean, the difference sometimes is just the fact that the ones that we can buy have been polished or shaped, and sometimes that adds to the beauty, but, I mean, I call them feral crystals, and my kids pick up feral crystals all the time, and we bring them home, so we have little, like, beautiful dishes filled with feral crystals too that maybe haven't been polished and shined, but they're beautiful, right? Same thing
Yeah,
with feathers. I'm like a total collector of feathers. I'm like, "Ooh, pretty feather, let's pick it up." Um, but yeah, I mean, I bought a crystal shop. So, like, 8 Stars also I have a crystal shop, a retail shop, because I love crystals so much, and I love the contribution that they make, and I've had experiences where even if I don't know the exact geology behind the crystal, it has impacted or made a difference in an intention that I had, whether that was protection or, um, celestite is what I used for my kids for good dreams and calm sleep. I've used a lot of moonstone for myself as I'm entering the fun phase of perimenopause for, like, hormone
me
balancing and
too.
stuff. Yeah, so
Yay.
the change. I'm trying to celebrate it. Sometimes I celebrate it. Sometimes I'm like, "Ugh."
Depends on the day. So, okay,
Yeah.
wait, but I'm gonna put the car in reverse because I wanna go back to what you said of just the different types of astrology. Um,
Yeah.
so what in, like, really just bullet points, like, what are the different types, and how do you know which one feels right for you to, like, go into?
Yeah, so, Vedic astrology is primarily utilized or comes out of India, and so it has its own, properties and similarities. I think they all have a baseline that's pretty similar, it's just a little bit of changes. I don't know all the different ones specifically. There's also, like, you can just look at astrology as a lens, but you can dice it differently, right? So, like, whole house systems, um I think it's called sidereal systems, Placidus system, which evolutionary astrology. I think the whole thing though is honestly the scientist in me experiment. Try it.
Experiment, okay.
Right? Like, because some people get an evolutionary astrology reading and they're like, "It's interesting, but I don't know that it's necessarily for me." That's totally fine. You know what I've gotten really into lately is, astrocartography, where your birth chart gets laid out over a global map.
Yes.
That blows my flipping mind, and I just had mine read, and I'm like, "Ooh, so this is a new rabbit hole I wanna go down," right? Like
I just had, someone on the podcast who was an astrologist. Astro is that no, what did I anyway, I still couldn't say it in the podcast, but
Yep.
if anyone is listening, you know what, you could put it in ChatGPT as well. You
Ah.
could find your map and then upload it to ChatGPT, and it'll kind of dumb it down for you, just an FYI.
Interest Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating, like, the marks on there were very accurate, so
Yeah,
I
I
don't
know. I think there's just so many listen, whether you're into astrology or not, I find all these things fascinating because, this it can't be as simple as we think it is. And I do believe that there's more to this life. And we are here for certain, like call it human school. We're here for certain lessons.
I
And
agree.
for me, I had an astrology, my reading done a few years ago. And there's just and I've had readings before, but this woman was so incredible that there was no way. She didn't know who I was. Like, she didn't know anything. She didn't even have social media. And it was so spot on, and it gave me at that point, just like you, I was in, like, this weird in between funk, and it just gave me a little bit of breathing room,
Yeah,
knowing full like, "I'm not crazy. This makes sense. This is where I'm going. Take a deep breath."
that's right. I think it allows you to give yourself a little grace
Yes.
and permission.
Jill, thank you so much. I have to do a part 2. I just you
Yeah,
don't even it's not even a if, and, or but about it, like, you're doing it.
I would love to anytime because we also have, like, big, massive transits, right? So this is our personalized birth chart, but we also have these huge transits. We have Pluto that just moved back into Aquarius, hasn't been there for 250 years. Neptune is moving into Aries in January, hasn't been there since the start of like the Civil War. Like we have these huge, massive transits that are happening right now that if people are feeling stuck, the astrology is starting to get a lot of forward momentum moving into 2026 too. So again, I think even if you don't believe in astrology, it's nice to kind of just know or have a general awareness because there's a chance that there's just a cosmic weather forecast happening that's contributing to the feeghstuckness, right?
Yes, yes. So
So,
Jill,
anytime.
her website is 8stars.co, 8 EIGHT, like, obviously, stars.co, co. She does readings. She also has her free workbook that is online, and she does private readings. So you could book a private reading. Jill, thank you so much. If you're listening, obviously, please rate and review the podcast, but also all of Jill's information will be down in the notes just in case you're on a walk. Thank you so much, Jill.
Thank you.